I'm going to start by giving you the TLDR. The too long didn't read, or in this case, the too long didn't listen. This is my thesis, the central message, the central core of my message. So if you tune out, mind wanders, you need a little time just to zone, pay attention to the next 250 words. The resistance needs us all to change, to be changed in order to be the change. It needs us to start with the kind of work that feels natural to us, and also to see what we can practice and get better at that may be a little uncomfortable. It needs us to explain change, exemplify change, expect change, because you can only do what you can do, so do it. It is true what was said in that book, that one, and the prayer, I don't remember if it was in the book or the prayer, that one of the things is that you might not be able to do something right now. That is absolutely true. Because part of the revolution is that we take shifts for the revolution. But resistance is a practice, which means that all of us, whether active or at rest, have ways that we can support the resistance, ways that we can be in community with each other, ways that we can support what needs to happen. Even though every day brings us an onslaught of awfulness that is happening to our neighbors, to our communities, here in the United States, and the awfulness that we did, the atrocities that we did to the country of Venezuela, and the immoral and illegal act that we did by hauling away the leader, the elected leader of a sovereign nation. And that's just what happened this weekend. What is happening to our rights, what is happening to decency, morality, and lawfulness. The thing that we need to hold is that despite all of that, nothing is a foregone conclusion. Nothing. No pundit, no analyst, no historical buff, no proselytizing predictor extraordinaire can tell us what is next. What is next depends on us. Depends on what we do. Hope remains alive, not out of statistics and not out of despair, although it is certainly right and understandable that we may be feeling that. But hope remains alive out of stories, out of what has been overcome and what can be overcome, from stories that are both hyper-local, your neighbor, your block, your community, as well as those that happen at a grand and massive scale. That is what manifests freedom and liberation, and that is what keeps us alive. So know your story. Know your why. Embody your purpose. Know it in every fiber of your being. Listen to other people's stories, especially if any of their identities are different from your own. That expands your why, expands your purpose. Learn the stories from history, the wins, the struggles, the people behind the headlines. And here's the piece that we don't do often enough. We know what we're fighting against, but what are we fighting for? We need to imagine the future's story as well. And I don't mean those generic words of, we're all for justice and equity and fairness. And those are all true. Those are all true. But is that a story? Can we picture that? We need, in technicolor details, to understand what is real, what is practical, and what is improbable. We need to paint that picture as explicitly as we can. All of the ways that we want humanity and all of life to coexist and thrive in a healthy, cared for Mother Earth. What does that look like? What does that mean when you are talking to your neighbor? What does that mean when our elected officials are making decisions about what should be spent on and what kinds of laws or policies or safeguards or possibilities we can be enacting? What does that look like, smell like, sound like, taste like? What is the technicolor of that future story? When you open up your imagination, your dreams, your hopes, your fervent need to have something realized for generations to come, how do you hold on to that story? Okay. If you need to, you can tune out now. I hope you won't. I have more to say. So I want to tell you just a teeny bit of one little piece of my story. You'll hear these from time to time all throughout it, and I don't want to make these things about me, but we're still getting to know each other. I'm only here once a month, so I think it's okay for me to tell a little bit of my story from here to here. Yeah. So when I was a young adult, I didn't know how important it was to imagine these types of things. I didn't take time to reflect. I just felt. I felt like something was wrong or off, but I didn't quite know what it was or what to do about it. I just felt angry. I felt pissed off. I felt like being a woman kind of sucked with the way society treats women. I was a burgeoning feminist who didn't know what feminism actually meant. And that's not a bad place to start. I'm not knocking 20-something-year-old Terri. I'm not. But I didn't have a community. I wasn't connected to anything. I just was like, then what, right? So the thing that I mean, you heard the feminism part, but the specific issue that really grabbed me, like it does so many young, burgeoning feminist 20-something-year-olds, is around reproductive health, around pro-choice. And I know you've had the tremendous gift of having Reverend Kelly as your former minister. And so you've heard a lot about her story within this particular area. Her story and my story, very different from each other. And Kelly has been a mentor to me in this since I became I wasn't even a baby minister, I was just a little seminarian type person. But just a couple of nuggets that were markers for me in this story. You know, I was an adoptee, so there's that little piece of it. And my sister and I were very different from each other. She's 4 years younger than me, and she made choices in her young life. Her story, not my story, but she had to make choices, and that wasn't anything that we talked about as a family at all. This happened, I was off in college. She was a 17-year-old who made choices. And then eventually she ran out of ability to make those choices and became a teenage mom at 18. That exists in your family story, even if it's not your story, right? My parents, my mom especially, was quite religious. She was Lutheran. She was a good Christian woman. She supported my sister with everything. The choices she made before she had a child and the choice that she made when she decided to have a child. But that influenced how I thought about things. My relationship, my complicated relationship, influenced also how I thought about whether I wanted to have children. And I chose, I think I've shared with you before, I chose not to have children. That was not a path that I wanted for all kinds of reasons that maybe I'll share some other time. But I was thrown into this swirl of decisions because of a family story, and we all have those, right? Our families of origin, they influence the paths that we go on. And it happens when our brains aren't even developed yet, right? I'm making these decisions, I'm being influenced by these activities. I'm not even 25 years old. I got married at age 24, not knowing who I was, making a decision to not be a parent when my brain wasn't even done being developed. I don't regret that decision whatsoever. Please know that that is my choice. And that choice to be a parent should be anyone's choice, right? But it influenced a direction of a justice issue. I didn't know it was a justice issue, but it influenced this feeling of like, pro-choice. I was one of those like fervent people who was like all the young people we see today, except they're so much smarter than I was. I was like, pro-choice. That's all I got. That's it. I had a life. I wasn't part of a community. I didn't know how to engage in justice work. All I knew is I felt something, and I didn't know what to do with it. I went to Planned Parenthood as my clinic, where I got my birth control pills and my reproductive health services. I gave them money when I could, as a young person starting out. I remember once going to the Planned Parenthood in Uptown because they put a call out. I lived in Uptown at the time. This is in Minneapolis, kind of downtownish, just outside of downtown. They put a call out for Valentine's Day, come make condom roses. So I went and did that. That was fun. So they were really cool. They were really cool. So I had all of this passion that was completely aimless. Was I making change? said, vote no. Okay, that was something. I remember driving, my mom lived up in Duluth, and I live in the cities, and I remember driving my funky red vote no car to Hinckley to meet her at Grand Casino, because that would be like a halfway point to meet my mom. I'm like, Mom, come out and see my car. And she was just like, huh, that's something. I learned to door knock. I learned to phone bank. And I learned to organize the classmates and the faculty and the staff at my seminary to make a public statement against this amendment. That was the push. That is part of the story of us. And they don't operate independent of our story of self. They are influenced by our story of self, and they become commingled into this amazing set of how values can be shared and propel us into something collective. Something that gives us this sense of unity and togetherness. And all of that coalesce to help us meet the story of now, the story of what is happening, what strategies are needed, what actions are needed, how do we need to show up to meet this story of now. It gives us clarity on what's happening and what is being asked of us. It helps us to think about what skills and talents do we have, what skills and talents do we need to foster and grow and maybe be a little bit more brave about. This, just to give credit where credit is due, this concept of story of self, story of us, and story of now comes from an amazing organizer named Marshall Gans. That has a large staff of mostly Latino folk who serve there as kitchen staff. And we have people on neighborhood watch at this hyper-local level who are noting license plates, trailing suspected ICE agents, handing out Know Your Rights cards, and working with all of our local businesses to make sure they understand what their rights are in facing ICE, right? This is all legal things that one can do. This is what we're doing at the hyper-local level. I get probably 300 messages through Signal every single day from these local watch groups, rapid response groups, resistance groups, right? But that is not all that we can do. One of the other things that is happening within my circle, just to give you two very different aspects. So you got folks that are 24/7 volunteering on these Signal groups. They change their name and put a little emoji symbol that says whether they're on dispatch, whether they're on commute, whether they're on this, that, and the other thing. There's this whole set of roles that they can play. I'm on another Signal group that every single night they post a Zoom link for a healing space so that those that are out there in those rapid response watch type networks are able to find rest and respite and a place to have healing. Very different roles, very different ways you can show up. I'm going over time, aren't I? I want to share, this is the only, well, I have two quotes that I'm going to share. Otherwise, most of this has just been me. I look at this, and it both is challenging to me and a reality check. And I want to share it. It's by Adrienne Maree Brown, brilliant, brilliant writer. When those with power are doing inhumane or anti-planet things, our choice is to be disruptive, to be impolite, is one of the ways we wage small resistance that can become mass resistance and large-scale cultural and political transformation. We have learned this from ancestors in our lineages who helped expose and break massive systems like chattel slavery or Holocaust genocide. Small resistance historically has looked like a wrench in the gears of slowing things down, a rancid ingredient in master's food. Enslaved people teaching each other to read and write, letting a fugitive sleep in your basement, learning how to give each other reproductive care, slipping each other cannabis for medicine. Small resistance these days looks like turning people who are supporting and promoting racist, transphobic, and inhumane policies away from your door. It looks like stopping next to police cars that have pulled people over and watching or filming them until the person stopped is allowed to leave. It looks like naming isms and phobias in real time and learning together. It looks like local direct actions at the homes of congresspeople who make decisions that harm humans or the planet. When you hear some of those things, I imagine it might cause some clenching of the stomach for some of us. Some of these things that are being lifted up are hard to do. And people will need to do that. We will need to engage in non-cooperation, disruptive, put a pebble in the shoe. What it was the word that Adrienne used. Put a rancid ingredient in the master's food, a wrench in the gears. We will have to do that. And we will also need people who will support those doing that, who will take care of the loved ones behind, who will create conditions of mutual care for the world that we're trying to create in the midst of this disruption, who will bake cookies and help each other rest and make signs and make beautiful music and draw and color and take care of the kids and come together in faith communities and engage in spiritual practices and heal each other. We will need letter writers. We will need everybody to find a place. So look at your energy, your capacity, your relationships, the level of risk that you can take, the level of discomfort that you might nudge yourself towards. And see if you can develop, if we can all develop a practice of saying a little bit more yes to what's being asked of us. There are 3 rules for effective resistance, according to Timothy Snyder. It's okay to take a little step, a little step, so long as, 1, it's something you know something about. So go learn. 2, that you do it with other people. You have to do this with other people. 3, do regularly. You have to practice it. We can't become more comfortable with something if we only try it once, go, oh, that was really too uncomfortable, and then we don't try again. If you can meet those 3 things, we are helping shape whatever democracy might look like. Explain change, exemplify change, expect change. You can only do what you can do, so do it, and do it zealously. May it be so, and amen.